specialist at Hamilton Southeastern schools and is really a bright light in the state. Just does amazing work. So, and she will be presenting on visual supports. Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks so much for saying that. I think that, you know, just before and as we get started here, just to let everybody know that it is true that working with people, individuals on the autism spectrum has always been a passion of mine. So today, as we're going through things, if I get to a point where I get too passionate or I stray away and we need to get back on the subject, please, anyone, help with that and kind of get me back where we need to go. There's just so many things that I want to talk about that sometimes it's hard to fit everything in. So we'll go for it today, and hopefully we'll be able to give you, my ultimate goal today is for anybody that's watching that you can at least take one of these strategies today, even tomorrow, and just use it immediately. Because I know that some of these things, and as far as trainings and Zoom meetings, can be time consuming. And so I want to make sure that we are thinking about your valuable time as we're doing these as well. So we're going to be talking about visuals and timers and Zoom. Oh my, how could you not put, or how could I not put a Wizard of Oz kind of reference in here? When March 16th, I would think, if we think back to March 16th, that was a Monday. I think back and I think to myself that that's the day that I said to myself, I don't think we're going to go back to school. And I know that was early on and we were out until spring break, but all of a sudden, here you all are, families, caregivers, staff members, everybody's dealing with this, you know, pandemic and thinking, oh my gosh, like I've always partnered with my school and we've done things together, but now my student, my child, my grandchild, my aunt, my nephew, my niece, they're all going to be home now, and it's on me. And while I'm still going to have support from the school, wow, I really am going to have to employ some of these strategies at home. So that's what I want to help you with today. And also in thinking as the summer rolls on, what's to be coming when school is starting again in the fall. None of us know. We're all kind of, you know, we're all floating down that same river. We all have our own boats, but we're kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen. So hopefully this will continue to help you as we move on. Did anybody say at any point during this, yeah, I'm not sure we're in Kansas anymore and we're thinking about the things we have to do at home, right? So big picture, when we think about using visuals and we think about using some timers, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Zoom today as well, and how visuals and timers can help fit in with that. The big picture that we need to think about is that it takes anxiety away from our individuals and our students and our kiddos. It makes things a little more clear. It makes things more concrete. That structure is what helps take anxiety away. If we know that we have to go to the grocery store, we know that we could do a list, especially now with going into a grocery store. And I will let you know, I will be honest with everyone that I have not yet been in a grocery store. So I've been playing what I call the grocery games, but the structure that I've been adding to myself with that is that I make sure that I am making lists of things that I need and when can I get them, and I have to put this shipped order in and I have to do this. That takes anxiety away from me. So why wouldn't we want to do that for our students and for our kiddos, right? And also one of the major things that visuals, timers, those structures that we put in place for some of our kiddos do is promotes independence. So when we're thinking about, wow, my kiddo would be able to do this on their own and I won't have to stand right next to them the entire time, and maybe I can have 10, 15 minutes on my own. We definitely want to put those visuals in place. The thing we need to think about with visuals, I'm just not coming to you today because I do love visuals. In my school district, they call me the visual queen. But I'm coming to you because it is an evidence-based practice. There is research and data that supports that visuals are something that works when we put them in place for individuals who need that structure. when I think about Temple Grandin, who is an individual with autism, and I have been lucky enough to see her speak a couple of times, I really think about her being this visual thinker. She thinks in pictures. She now has a children's book out, The Girl Who Thought in Pictures, who I've read to several of my student groups, just because we all are different learners and we learn a different way, right? But putting those images in our minds, again, continues to add that structure, and maybe that will help make something that you are verbalizing to your kiddo become more concrete. You're like, I've told him a million times where to put his shoes. Go put your shoes away. Go put your shoes by the door. Go put your shoes by the door. If you would just add a visual, even if it's just an outline of shoes by the door, then you can start pointing to the door, pointing at the door instead of continuously having to verbalize to them. We need more visuals to come in and less verbalizations. Just a graphic that I love to use when I'm talking about using visuals as well. Visuals are permanent, right? The spoken words, as we're talking, luckily this is being recorded. If every day, like I had to remember all of the things that constantly were coming into my filing cabinets in my brain, I couldn't remember all of those things. I'm lucky enough to have planners. I'm lucky enough to have lists that I make. I'm lucky enough to have a cell phone that I can put things in, but visuals are permanent, right? The spoken word goes away. It allows more time for processing, which sometimes we talk about that wait time and how that can feel really kind of like, oh, I've been waiting so long, but we have to put in that wait time because some of our kiddos need that time to process our language. Putting a visual in place helps them process even quicker. Prepares for transitions. And are we going to have a huge transition for all of us as we're getting back into our workplaces and into our schools, whatever that may look like? Putting some of these visuals in place ahead of time and using some of these social stories, which we'll get to, and I have some examples to show you, will only help with those transitions. Again, it helps kids see what you mean. So if you're telling them something like putting their shoes away, instead of continuously just verbalizing, you can show them and put those structures in place. And they help all students. When I go to all my classrooms in the district that I work for, we have over 22,000 kids in our district. When I go into classrooms, I'm like, if we can put a visual in place and it works for a student on the autism spectrum, it's good for everybody. It's gonna work for any student, right? Again, that independence piece, you can transfer them from home to school. Hopefully some of you had already started connecting when COVID hit. You started meeting on Zooms or you had things mailed to you. Hopefully your schools were in collaboration with you and thinking about like, hey, we use this at school. Maybe we should use this structure at home. I think it's also very important to tell you guys, I'm here as a huge support for you. I am not here to preach to you and say to you, you need to totally visualize everything in your home and change it all up. We all know that 24/7, you are the caretakers for your kiddos, and that's a job, right? And so these are just a few things that you can put in place in different parts of your day that maybe will help add structure. And like I said, give you a little more time that you can do something on your own while your student is doing something on their own. Visuals have no attitude. So that's the other thing we need to think about. Sometimes it takes away you being the proverbial bad guy and the visual becomes the telling one that would tell the student, oh, hey, you know what? The iPad is done for today. Oh, hey, you know what? If you do this, then you get to watch 20 minutes of your video, right? And again, that huge piece of reducing anxiety. Who's needed this during quarantine? Not even just for kids, right? I saw this on Facebook and I was like, perfect, this is perfect. I, as an adult, needed this during COVID, right? For whatever reason, Pringles became the snack of choice in my home. And I told my husband, we cannot buy any more Pringles. So this idea of some of our kiddos, just a visual support that you're like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought of that. As our kiddos, some of them are grazers and they might want to eat all day long, or they seem like they're hungry all day long. This is just another visual support that we can put in place. But I just thought of, you know, I hear my colleagues and friends and so forth saying, I'm going to gain the COVID-15. Maybe this is a visual to put in place. So I thought that was kind of funny just to kick us off. How many of you do use visuals though? And if you want to put something in the Q&A every day, what's a visual that you can think of that you use? I'm going to show you some, right? So just kind of to jog your memory. Where we park, visual support shows us, oh, hey, this is where the office staff park. This is where students park. Did you know that a Kleenex box has visuals? How old were you when you found this out? I was 42 years old. So what happens is, and it's not every Kleenex box either, so I've also caveat there, but with the Kleenex brand Kleenexes in the shorter, not the tall box, the shorter box as you see, as you get towards the bottom of the Kleenex box, the Kleenexes start to get a different color. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that maybe that Kleenex box had just been there too long, but no, it's actually a visual support telling you that the Kleenex are about to run out. So another visual we use. Who needs this visual in their home, in the bathroom, for all of their significant others, right? All you have to do is put the, if it's gone, throw it away and put another one on, but a visual support. Sometimes we have to have multiple attempts. That's the other thing we're going to talk about. We need to continuously think, I wish that a visual support was magic. And I could say, boom, put the visual in place and boom, it's going to work. Sometimes I tell my teachers that they should try it for at least 30 days. Now, I'm not going to leave them just out hanging there by themselves for 30 days. I'm going to continuously check in and figure out, okay, I used it this way and what happened. But then sometimes we just need continued visual supports. This was at a school system where we went to visit and they were like, you pressed the right button. I'm like, well, definitely because of all the visual supports that it shows us. So sometimes multiple attempts at trying to figure out what the visual is that we actually need. A friend of mine travels, a colleague, all summer long. She's not traveling this summer, but she goes to exotic places, foreign places. If we're just looking at words, if you look at the sign that's on the left-hand side, that's hard to decide. Like, if you can't read that language, then you have no idea what that sign says. But same country, in a shopping mall, there was a sign that had, you know, third floor. It looks like there is bathrooms. There's a handicap bathroom. I think I can ride the carousel on the third floor. Oh, it looks like down on the first floor, I can maybe get my hair cut, even on the second floor too. So take away those verbals or that actually written part of language and you add the visual and you can still do what you need to do, even in a foreign country. We use visuals every day. This tells me I have no idea what those words say, but I know that it's a bathroom. Universal visual, right? This is why we want to continue to use visuals and think about. Sometimes we become Charlie Brown's teachers when we're continuously talking to our kids, when we're continuously talking to our spouses, our loved ones. It becomes that wah, 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 wah. That's why we need visuals in our life. They can take the place of some of those verbalizations that we say we're saying over and over again, and they're not getting in there. So if you want to put in the Q&A, we're looking at the towel dispenser over here. Do you yell at the kids for getting too much? How many do you think do that? You're just like, that's too much paper towel. You only do this many, you only do this many. Or are you just like, forget it, I'm just doing it for them? Because that happens a lot. And then we see that independence wane, right? We don't see that promotion of independence. If we just teach them the expectation, we build the independence with those visuals. This was in one of our preschool classrooms. 1, 2, 3, pull. Did it absolutely make everything magically happen as soon as that visual is slapped up there? Absolutely not. Visuals still have to be taught. That's something we also talk about with all of our staff, with parents, with caregivers, that visuals are great, but they do have to be taught. So sometimes we do still need to use those verbalizations in teaching, and then we can fade out those verbalizations as the visual takes over the independent skill. What can I do today? Meat and potatoes. Here we go, guys. 3 things that I'm going to tell you about today that you can take and you can use right away. First thing, one of my favorite visuals ever, because you can use it in so many ways, right? Another thing is you don't have to have an iPad. You don't have to have an iPhone. You don't have to have a computer to use it. You can use a plain old piece of paper and you can write your own first then on there. First, we have to brush our teeth and then you can take your bath, right? Because we know bath time isn't as fun. I mean, bath time is more fun than brushing our teeth. We don't like to brush our teeth. But if we do this first, then we get to do this. Or first, we have to go to the grocery store. That's not your favorite place to go. Then we can stop at the park and swing. Okay, so a first then can be used in so many ways. First, your sister is going to watch this part of her video, then you can have a turn and watch your video. Okay, we also, on a first then, you can use a dry erase board, right? It's just as easy to write first then on a dry erase board. So those are non-tech ways that you could use a first then. And at the end, my email is at the end of this presentation, and I can put it in the chat box before we actually end. But feel free to email me if you want any template. I know that Melissa will be emailing out some of those things and the resources that I talk about today. We'll send those resources out, but anything that you need help in making, please feel free to contact me. That's what I love to do. And if we need to be creative, we can be creative. The visual schedule for like I am working for, or a visual schedule of your day can be anything from using, we very often use a first then visual for our schedule because we can say, this is what we're doing first today, and then we're doing this. Because sometimes a complete daily schedule can be overwhelming for some of our kiddos, right? So breaking that down and chunking it into parts is also very helpful. The I'm working for, it just adds motivation, guys. It adds motivation in the fact that, hey, what do you want to do next? After we get your schoolwork done and we put your laundry away, what's something that you really, really want to do? Is it listen to your music? Is it watch your video for 30 minutes? Is it to go outside and get in the kiddie pool for 30 minutes? And so then it's as simple as you can give them either a token reinforcement with, you see the reinforcer, you see the visual that's on my PowerPoint. That's just a paper visual. But again, you can use something like a piece of paper. You can use something like a dry erase board. You can use something as simple as if you have pennies at home. Giving a kiddo, they get 5 pennies, they put them in a jar. Okay, you can earn 5 more pennies. Okay. It's all dependent on what your kids can do. Sometimes, some of our kiddos, we start out with earning 5 things and we have 3 things that are already on there and they only have to earn 2. So we have to work up to where they can, you know, where their level of understanding is as far as using that, what I am working for, okay? Something else I wanted to show you, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a minute so that I can share a different way. I'm going to show you an app that's actually free. Unfortunately, when Melissa and I were talking about this app, she was like, is it for Android and Apple? I said, that's a very good question because we're an Apple school system and we have Apple devices. So I was like, I don't know, but I researched this particular app is not available on Android, so I apologize. But it is a wonderful free app called ASD Tools. Some of those things that I just talked about are all right here in one package. So you want to first then. The best part about this app is you can add your own photos, your own pictures. You can take them with your device as long as they are in your picture gallery on your device, then you can just add them right in here. So for the first one that I'm going to do, I'm just going to say that let's say we were talking about brushing our teeth. Guess I'm stuck with brushing your teeth right now, right? So there's brushing your teeth. So we need to do that first before we can get in the bathtub, right? And then a kiddo gets to help and check it off, and then they get to check it off, and it's a first then. It's as simple as that. The other one that I really like is the reward, or reinforcer, as I would like to call it. They could change the name on the app, that'd be great. So again, we want to get in the bathtub. So we have to get past that brushing teeth, and for whatever reason, sensory wise, it's too much. So you can reinforce by giving a token. Your kiddos can give them a plus or minus. Typically with something like reinforcement, it's better to give than to take away. Take away sometimes causes those meltdowns, and we want it to be productive. So there's another one and another one. Can go as many as you want. And the thing about this is you can kind of control how long it takes to get those 5 tokens. It might be a matter of 20 seconds. It might be a matter of 5 minutes, all depending on what you want to use it for. Timer, same kind of thing. Oh, I want to eat my cookie. Okay, well, we have to sit at the dinner table first for more than 5 seconds, but for time's sake. For 5 seconds, you can play it. The timer goes down. You can pause the timer if we need a few minutes to kind of recollect ourselves, and you can play the timer again. No sound. No, there it is. I was gonna say the sound didn't go off. So you can have the sound. Look at that, it's still ringing. Go away. There we go. You can have the sound go off. Typically, I don't have the sound on because for some of our kids, that just causes more anxiety. So ASD tools, that will be in the resource list. So that's one app I wanted to share. Let me go back. Stop sharing this. Go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. There's that's just a laminated first then. I have that template. Like I said, I'll give you my email. If you'd like me to email you that template, or if I need to make something a little bit different for you, I'd be glad to do that. The other thing is these fine ladies that are the hosts from the Indiana Resource Center for Autism, Amy Gaffney, who's one of the hosts, and all of the staff have wonderful visuals and visual supports and ideas of how to put structure into activities on their Facebook page, on their website, also on their Pinterest page. And I have all of those things in the resources as well. That's one of the first places, you guys, that I go to. And I tell all of my staff and students, like, we have a lot on our plates. We don't need to recreate the wheel. Go someplace first to see if you can find something. And Amy told me today that everything is now in Word. So you can actually customize it for the student or individual that needs to have the visual. So that's awesome. First then, some calm me down and deep breath kind of visuals that I have. And I have all of these in the resource list as well. But as we are moving into transitioning, whatever that looks like, and even now, we have lots of kids who this is traumatic for. They're going to be showing us signs of trauma if they're not already, I'm sure, showing signs of trauma at home. So I think some of the social emotional learning strategies also are so important, and to pair them with a visual. The Calm app is down below there. It is free right now. I don't know how long it will be free, but it's one of those things that they're offering for free right now. I had it for free before, and you can use it to your advantage, and it is fine. You don't really need the paid part, but it helps teach breathing and calming strategies, as well as some meditation strategies, and you can use it online or it is an app. So those are just some other visuals just to help. When somebody is in crisis, the one thing that they don't want to verbally continue to hear is calm down, because what does calm down mean? What does that mean for me to calm down? I am in crisis right now. Putting a visual in place where you're teaching them, let's stop, take a deep breath in, let's count to 5, and then we're going to rest in our chair. So visuals for social emotional learning and techniques as well. Timers, which I'm looking at my time right now. Got to speed through here. Kiddos need to feel some control too, and we want to give them some control. And we can do that in the way of using some timers. Some stuff you can use today. I'm going to teach you guided access really quickly in just a minute. I'll show you on my iPhone. If you don't know guided access, that is the one thing from today that you will be like, oh my gosh, I needed to know this forever ago. A red, yellow, green is another kind of timer that you can use. And again, it lets you kind of be in charge of the ticking down of time. You start with a green. Okay, let's start the activity. Oh, you know what? You're almost finished. You're almost done. Oh, look, you're finished. Way to go. And that could be a matter of, like I said, a minute, 30 minutes, 25 seconds. But you can use that to your advantage, the stoplight timer. And that is in the resource page. The couple of other timers, the countdown timer you see with the duck right there, that's another app. It is available on Android and iPhone, and it is free. What I like about that app is you can put anything in there that they're counting down to as far as the picture goes. They already have a plethora of pictures that you can choose from, and they make funny sounds and so forth, and you can take the sound off as well if that's too overwhelming or too anxiety ridden for your kiddo. Guided access. Let me teach you really, really quickly. I'm going to share again. I'm showing you on my iPhone. It works on your iPad just as well, but my iPad, for whatever reason, the home button has never worked, and our computer gurus could not get it to work. So I'm like, just going to show you on here. Guided access, you need to make sure it is in a setting. So you go in and hit guided access, and it'll show you exactly where to look. And you just want to make sure that the green button is toggled over to have guided access on. So it's in settings is where you find it. You can go into any game, any app. It does work with YouTube, but I'm going to go into cookies right now. This is an app that some of our kiddos love to do. It's actually a calming down kind of app for some of our kiddos. It distracts them. I triple clicked my home button. That is the part that you kind of have to finesse, because the triple click, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm trying to click. So triple click, once you get it, you'll have it, I promise. But you triple click your home button, hit guided access. Now, as you can see, it says my guided access is already started. That's because I've used this app before and already set up guided access, but you can still change it. So you would go back and triple click, hit guided access, put in your passcode. Let me tell you how important the passcode is. You probably want to do that in a dark, deep closet so your kiddos can't see it, because kiddos can figure out passcodes, right? I mean, definitely. So do something that you don't think they'll ever figure out, even though they probably will, but try to do it someplace where they can't see. Because here's the most important part, options. You can put on a time limit. You can put on the volume buttons. You can put the sleep wake on. I usually put the motion on, so that way that will keep it, if the kiddo is moving a lot, that still continues guided access. It won't stop it. I have the time limit on a minute for right now, just to show you. Here's another very important part. If we don't want the kiddos to be able to go someplace on the screen, you can very carefully take your finger, draw around any object, and do you see it popped up with gray? That means you will not be able to touch that. They won't be able to touch that as you resume and go into the game. So I don't want them to be able to go back. I want them to keep going forward. Or if you have a game where there's lots of ads, you can block out the ads, and then kiddos can't go out of the app. They can't go into an ad, right? Then all you do, I'm going to hit resume. Yours will probably say start if it's the first time you're in an app. And my guided access has started. What this does, it takes away caregivers, moms, dads, grandpas, grandmas, aunts, uncles. It takes away you being the bad guy of saying, you have 5 minutes left on your iPad. Oh, no, I don't have 5 minutes left, right? So this helps take that attitude part. Remember we said visuals don't have attitude. This is a visual who your kiddos might have attitude at first when they see this visual, but the visual doesn't have an attitude, right? So it will, you can see it said 29 seconds remaining. You can also take that part off, because sometimes, again, kiddos see that and they start to get nervous. But what happens is at the end is that it will pop up and say, basically guided access is stop, like you're done right now. And it blacks out the screen and then it makes it unavailable for your kiddos to touch. And the only way you can get out of that is to triple click again. Time is expired. That means it's time to stop with whatever's going on the iPad, iPhone, or whatever. Okay. There's a video because we went through that really quick. I get it. And we need to practice things. And today, for sake of time, we don't have a lot of time to practice. So there is a video that I've added in the resources that teaches you how to use guided access. Here are some more just waiting visuals that we have. You can simply just use a countdown of numbers, my stoplight visual that I really like, a pause button. Kiddos know a lot about game controls and so forth. So if you say, hey, we're gonna put a pause on that for right now, a lot of times they completely understand what that means, right? As far as a visual goes. Zoom, kids during Zoom calls, right? And then right after they're done, you're like, oh, they're fine. I just want to tell you guys, give yourself some grace when it comes to Zoom calls. Give yourself some grace, right? 3 things you can do today. I have added lots of Zoom social narratives and scripts in the resource page. Go over those with your kiddos. Because what's happened is, I'll play just part of one.
Right now, I have to stay home. I cannot go to school. My teacher will send me work to do at home. Zoom is a program I can use. I can use it on the phone, tablet, or computer. Zoom helps me talk to and see my friends and teachers.
So let me go back. The thing that it does, that story continues, and then it talks about also like sometimes your microphone is muted, and this is why it's muted. When we were pushed into this pandemic and schools were deciding, okay, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? We're going to Zoom. The piece that was missing, I feel like, and maybe some of you did this or got to do this, was parents need to learn about Zoom and to know that, hey, if your kiddo is running away from the camera and then they're coming back to the camera and they're running away and they're not even in the camera right now and the teacher is continuing to talk, it's okay. We're all learning. It's a process. Again, we can have visuals prepared and ready to go that says, with those tokens, and say, okay, we're gonna sit and do this. I'm gonna get 5 tokens, and then you get to go drink your juice, or then you get to go and play outside, and work along with your schools and with your teachers to do that. And just take a deep breath, because sometimes it is like, we're gonna have to leave the Zoom right now and we can come back later. That's okay. We will understand that. Teachers will understand that as well. This is the place I go to for lots of images that I use on visuals. And I just want to put a caveat out there, disclaimer, you can find anything on Google Images, okay? So just that disclaimer out there. If you're looking for a specific baby doll, or if you just be ready of what might pop up in the images as far as when you're looking. But Google Images is someplace that, and you have to think about copyright, and there is a way to check so that you can get things that are okay, the images are okay to use and they're not copyrighted. But Google Images is another place that I always go to make sure that I can find things. I just want to tell you guys that I have talked a mile a minute. I usually talk fast, but not that fast. My gosh. But sometimes we do just need to stop and pause, breathe, cry, but just keep going. My contact information is there. My email is labrown@hse.k12.in.us. I'd be glad to continue any conversations about visuals or help you figure out what social story or visual you might need. YouTube is another place that is a go-to for me to find a good social story. There are several social stories out there about social distancing and explaining that to kiddos from high school up to our really littlest learners. So I just want to thank everybody for listening